India wants to become a superpower country. That's what India wants to achieve. But there's one very simple thing they forgot, and that's how to clean up their own backyard. Now, India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, but at the same time, it's also one of the dirtiest. Their rivers are like sewers. Their streets are covered with garbage, and their cities can barely breathe because of the mix of human and plastic waste. In fact, this has become a normal sight throughout their country. And it's not just disgusting, it's also deadly. It damages the economy, ruins tourism, and directly affects the health of millions of people. In the midst of India's dream to become a global leader, there's a big question. Why is their country so dirty? And why are millions of people still living in filth? Filth everywhere, while their government boasts about having space missions? In this video, we'll take a look at a crisis that's clearly visible in India. And we'll also look at why India's sanitation problem is getting worse and worse. But before we start, don't forget to like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much, and now let's get started. The moment you land in any city in India, you can already feel it. Even before you get off the plane, the smell, rotten garbage mixed with the smell of sewage, open canals overflowing with filth, plastic bags clogging every gutter and waterway. This is India. And instead of getting better, it's only getting worse. Every day, more than 160,000 tons of solid waste are produced in the country. But only about 25% is properly processed. The rest is dumped in large landfills, burned in open fires, or left to rot right on the streets. In Mumbai, it takes days before the trash on the sidewalk is collected, and the cows, which they consider sacred, they just walk in the middle of traffic while chewing on plastic bags. When they die, autopsies reveal kilos of plastic inside their stomachs. In Bangalore, known as the country's tech capital, there are lakes that literally catch fire because of industrial pollution. Belander Lake has caught fire several times, with flames rising several meters into the air because of toxic chemical foam. In Delhi, the Yamuna River, which passes right through the capital, is so polluted in some parts that it seems dead. No fish, no plants, black water foaming because of pure sewage. And then there's the Ghazipur landfill, a mountain of garbage that's over 65 meters high. It's even taller than a 20-story building. Its height is almost at the same level as the Taj Mahal. And it regularly catches fire, releasing thick and poisonous smoke into the nearby communities. It's a monument of failure, a mountain of garbage that's visible even from above. But the trash is just the beginning. Even today, almost 7% of India's population still defecates in the open, in fields, on the side of the road, and next to train tracks. Despite decades of campaigns and billions spent on toilets, almost 1 in 6 people still have nowhere to go. Just think about that. A country on its way to becoming the 3rd largest economy in the world, but hundreds of millions are still forced to defecate on the ground. And all of this comes back to the water, the food, the health of the entire country. The Ganges River, worshipped by millions as a living goddess, has fecal coliform bacteria levels that are 3 to 12 times higher than the safe level. In some areas, it even reaches 50,000 to 60,000 per 100 milliliters. The water is brown, toxic, mixed with industrial waste, sewage, and even human remains. But even so, pilgrims still bathe here, they drink it, and even give it to newborn babies. Every year, more than 100,000 children in India die because of diseases directly caused by a polluted environment. Diarrhea, cholera, typhoid, dysentery, deaths that could have been prevented, lives lost because of filth. And what's worse, this isn't a secret. Tourists can see it. The locals experience this. Everyone knows about it. But while the dream of becoming a superpower continues, the question remains. How can you be a leader of the world if you can't even fix your own backyard? Satellites can see this from orbit. That means it's no longer a question of whether India is dirty. The real question is, why does it seem like no one can stop this? Because the mountains of garbage, that's just what the eyes can see. The real rot goes even deeper. Let's talk about what this is really doing to people, especially to the next generation. India's sanitation problem isn't just an eyesore. It's a health disaster that's slowly killing the country's future. Before it gets any worse, as we speak, millions of Indian children are already having their brain development damaged before they even turn 5 years old. Not just because of lack of food, but because of fecal contamination. When a child grows up in an environment with open defecation and untreated sewage, their body is constantly fighting infections. Repeated diarrhea, parasites, bacterial infection that the immune system can't keep up with. Instead of growing and developing, their bodies are always in survival mode. Their bodies don't grow properly. Their brains don't develop properly either. This is what's called stunting. And India is one of the countries with the highest rate of this in the world. For a country with this level of income, these children will never reach their full intelligence. They will have a hard time in school. They will earn less when they grow up. And when they have children, the same cycle will just repeat. An entire generation is being destroyed by sewage. And that's just the children who survive. More than 100,000 children in India don't make it to adulthood. They die from diseases that shouldn't exist anymore in the 21st century. Cholera outbreaks spreading in the slums, typhoid epidemics from dirty water, dysentery that can kill an infant in just a few days. There are mothers who can only watch their children die from diarrhea. Because of water, this is how deep the contamination goes. 72% of urban wastewater in India flows directly, without any treatment, into rivers, lakes, and groundwater. Almost 3/4 of the sewage goes right back into the very source of water, water that people drink, used for cooking, used for bathing. It's a closed cycle of disease, and the healthcare system can no longer handle it. Hospitals all over India, full of patients with preventable diseases, beds occupied by typhoid patients, wards filled with children suffering from severe diarrhea, clinics that can barely breathe because of skin infections, respiratory problems from burning trash, and parasites coming from the water. The system no longer treats new diseases or complicated conditions. It just keeps cleaning up the effects of filth over and over again. Over and over, over and over, over and over. There are doctors in the provinces who say that the illnesses they treat now are the same ones their grandfathers treated before. Cholera, hookworm, diseases that should only be in history books. But in India, these are still everyday emergencies, and the cycle doesn't end. The child is treated for dysentery. They go home cured. They drink again from the same dirty well, and after 2 weeks, they're back in the hospital. It's just like a treadmill, running and running, but getting nowhere. They're treating the symptoms, but no one wants to face the root of the problem. And if you think the nightmare is over, it's only going to get worse. Beside the Ganesh River in Varanasi, every year, around 40,000 bodies are burned right on the riverbank. Many of them are burned using only wood. The heat isn't enough. The bodies don't get fully cremated. So what happens is the partially burned remains along with the ashes are thrown straight into the river. And remember, those are just the cremated ones. Thousands more bodies are never burned at all. Instead, they're just floated straight into the Ganges. Babies, pregnant women, people who died from snake bites. According to tradition, they are not cremated. Water is immediately their final resting place. As the current carries the swollen bodies away, they get caught on the riverbank. They become a feast for dogs and crows. And in that very place, people still continue to bathe. They still drink the water. And they still believe they're safe because they say the river is holy. But the truth is clear. Faith does not cleanse cholera. And this is where everything gets worse. It's not just lives that are lost. Money, too, in huge amounts. According to the World Bank's calculations, India loses approximately $54 billion every year just because of poor sanitation. Let me repeat, $54 billion every year. This isn't a guess, it's not an opinion. This is based on real data. Medical expenses, lost work hours, premature deaths, and decreased productivity. In 2006, this was equivalent to about 6.4% of India's entire gross domestic product. This means that every year, the amount that could have been allocated for education is just being spent, not on building the future, but on dealing with waste. Literally, just imagine where that money could have gone. More schools, better roads, improved health care, more modern technology. But the reality is it goes to treating consecutive typhoid outbreaks, fixing roads destroyed by floods caused by clogged drainage, paying workers who can't come to work because they're sick, and expenses for children who died before they even had the chance to contribute to society. This is economic self-destruction. And it gets worse over time because it's not just money that's lost in treating the sick. There's also money that will never be earned. In rural areas, many women spend several hours each day just looking for a secluded place where they can relieve themselves. Hours that could have been used for work, for earning, for improving their lives. Instead, they walk several kilometers before sunrise or after dark, risking assault just to find a ditch or a grassy area. And tourism, which should have been a great source of wealth for a country rich in history and culture, is severely affected. All over the world, India has the same reputation among travelers: Delhi belly. Tourists expect to get sick, that the water is dirty, that there's trash everywhere, and that there's human waste on the streets. And often their expectations are right. So instead of going to India, they choose to go to Thailand or Vietnam, or anywhere with a lower chance of getting dysentery. Hundreds of millions of dollars are lost in tourism revenue every year. Investors see it the same way. Do you think big companies would want to set up their headquarters in a city where employees have to wade through sewage every monsoon season? Where the air quality is so bad that people are forced to wear masks? What about the schools? Where the Yamuna River, which runs right through the capital, is covered with thick toxic foam? No, the capital flows through a clean and orderly place. And skilled professionals, whether Indian or foreign, don't want to raise a family in the middle of filth. So the money leaves, the talent leaves, and along with this, India's infrastructure is slowly giving way under the weight of its own garbage. Plastic clogs the drainage. It causes flooding. It destroys roads and buildings. Sewage eats away at pipes and foundations. Pollution speeds up the deterioration of bridges and monuments. The government spends billions to repair the damage, but the damage increases faster than they can fix it. And the result is clear. Even the Taj Mahal, the most iconic symbol of India, is gradually turning yellow. Its white marble is being eaten away by acid rain and smog. In the end, even symbols of greatness are not safe when a country is consumed by its own filth. This is really what's happening. India is gradually being divided into two worlds. There are small islands of order. Clean business districts, gated communities with their own waste management, special economic zones where the system is organized and basic services work. But these islands are surrounded by a vast sea of decay. The rich can separate themselves. They have their own garbage collectors. There's a water purifier on every faucet. There's a private sewage treatment facility inside the compound. Meanwhile, everyone else is literally drowning in filth, and the gap keeps getting bigger. In Gurgaon, you can see the shiny corporate towers, right next to the slums where raw sewage flows right on the street. In the same city, there are penthouses worth millions, while just a few kilometers away, there are children playing in garbage dumps. The rich no longer use public services. They've long opted out: private security, private water supply, private waste management, everything private. They've abandoned the public system because it has collapsed. And when the rich no longer rely on public infrastructure, they stop caring whether it still works. Why would they worry? They're no longer affected. That's why public services deteriorate even faster. Municipal budgets shrink because the tax base, the people who can afford to pay, have retreated behind high walls. What's left are the poor, a broken system, lacking funds, and overwhelmed with problems. The public system doesn't get better. It just gets weaker. As the population grows and consumption increases, infrastructure falls even further behind. More people, more trash, but the same broken system. This is a death spiral. And do you know what the most twisted part is? The government knows all about this. They've already built millions of toilets, but people still refuse to use them. And this is where we stop talking about infrastructure. And we enter a scarier topic, civilizational collapse. Because the truth is, India's sanitation crisis is not a technical problem. It's not because of a lack of money. It's also not because of a lack of technology to build sewage systems and waste treatment plants. This is a problem of mindset, a society that, at its very core, doesn't care about the cleanliness of public spaces. And that's the real verdict. Let's look at the most obvious contradiction. If you enter almost any house in India, you'll see it's very clean. The floors are cleaned every day. The tables and walls are spotless. Shoes are left outside. Everything is in order. But when you step outside that house, you'll see trash being thrown straight onto the street. No hesitation, no conscience. The contrast is shocking. This isn't just simple hypocrisy. This is a deep cultural script that says cleanliness is important inside my house. But outside, it's someone else's problem. That's for others to deal with. Historically, public places in India have been cleaned by lower caste workers, the so-called untouchables. They are the ones assigned to dirty jobs. Cleaning toilets, sweeping streets, removing garbage and human waste. This is where a dangerous mindset was formed. I don't need to worry about the street. That's the cleaner's job. And even now, that mindset is still alive. Even among educated and middle-class citizens, there's a hidden belief that cleaning public spaces is a lowly job. They say it diminishes dignity. It's a job you pay the poorer people to do. That's why they have no problem littering, because in their minds, a sanitation worker will eventually come to pick up the trash. This is a transfer of responsibility, and it's rotten to the core. In 2014, the government launched the Swachh Bharat, or Clean India program. It's one of the biggest sanitation campaigns in history. More than 100 million household toilets were built. 100 million. You'd think that's enough to solve the problem? No. According to surveys, millions of these toilets were never used. Some were turned into storage rooms, some became animal pens, and many still continue to defecate outside. Why? Because for them, having a toilet inside the house is dirty. And the public latrines, because they have no water and no maintenance, also became extremely dirty. So the belief only became stronger. It's better to just go in the fields, and here you can see the real problem. It's not a lack of infrastructure. It's not a lack of funds, but rather a society that is not yet ready to take care of its own space. The infrastructure is there. There are toilets. There are laws. What's missing? The willingness to comply. And do you know why? Because there's almost no enforcement. On paper, there's a fine for littering in India. It's only about 500 rupees. That's equivalent to almost $6. But in real life, almost no one gets caught. For the police and municipal inspectors, littering is just a small thing. They ignore it. They don't go after it. And when no one gets caught, a clear message comes out. It's okay to litter. Compare that to Singapore. There, if you throw trash in the wrong place, you can be fined up to $1,050, even on your first offense. If you do it again, the fine can reach $2,000, and you can even be punished with community service. You clean the streets in public wearing a bright vest while everyone watches. That's why people in Singapore don't litter. It's not because they're kinder, but because they know they'll get caught. In India, it's the opposite. People litter because they know nothing will happen. And when breaking the law has no consequences, the law loses its meaning. This is called the broken windows effect. And you can clearly see this in real life. You see a pile of trash on the corner. Your mind tells you everyone here is throwing their trash. So you throw yours too. One piece becomes 10, 10 becomes 100, 100 becomes permanent, and no one stops it. And in the rare instances when the law is actually enforced, that's when corruption comes in. Someone gets caught throwing trash. The fine is 500 rupees. The person caught offers 100 rupees under the table. The inspector accepts, leaves, end of discussion. And everyone learns just one thing: the law can be bargained. Rules don't matter if you know how to work the system. And almost everyone knows how to work the system. This is where a culture is formed where civic responsibility is treated like a joke. A person who walks to the trash can instead of throwing garbage anywhere is even seen as foolish. Why would you even make an effort if no one else is doing it? The social pressure is reversed. Instead of being ashamed of breaking the rules, there's even a bit of pride in getting around the system. But this is the most mind-boggling part. Do you remember the sacred rivers? The Ganges is worshipped as a goddess, Mother Ganga. Many believe that her water can cleanse sins and cannot be polluted. That's why everything is thrown into her. Plastic idols with toxic paint, offerings wrapped in non-biodegradable material, half-burned corpses, industrial waste. And in the minds of many, this is not pollution. They say it's devotion. Here, everything completely decays. The connection between spiritual belief and physical reality is cut off. Even though you can clearly see the river's ribbon, there's chemical foam full of trash. It smells like a sewer, yet it's still called sacred. People still bathe in it. People still drink from it, because admitting that the Ganges is dirty feels like blasphemy. That's why they don't admit it. And as long as that's the case, the river continues to die. This is the disconnect that's killing India, a government that boasts about space missions and digital transformation, while millions still defecate outside. A culture that's extremely clean inside the house, but treats public spaces like a dumping ground. A society that built 100 million toilets but didn't use them. This isn't because of poverty. This isn't because of a lack of resources. This is a failure of collective responsibility. And it's getting worse because when basic civic order is broken and remains broken, everything else will eventually collapse too. So where does this lead? Not to the sudden downfall of the country, not to India disappearing from the map, but to a slow, continuous decay that consumes everything it tries to build. And this is already happening now. India's so-called demographic dividend, the young and massive workforce, is slowly being poisoned even before they enter the workforce. Children who grow up in filth have bodies and minds that do not develop properly. Their development is incomplete. They struggle in school. They earn less when they grow up. They get sick more often. This is not a problem for tomorrow. It is happening now. Studies directly show that high open defecation is connected to severe cognitive problems in children. It's not just physical stunting, it's mental stunting too. The mechanism is this simple and this painful. When a child's body is constantly fighting infection, from fecal control, contamination, the body prioritizes survival. The resources that should go to brain development are used to fight illness. The immune system is in permanent crisis mode. These children are not falling behind in school because they lack intelligence. They fall behind because their brains were not given the chance to develop properly. By the time they reach 5 years old, the battle is over. The damage has been done. An entire generation is being destroyed at the neurological level itself. And what's even more painful is that India needs that generation. The entire economic future of the country depends on them. But instead of a healthy and ready workforce, millions of workers are coming in whose potential was destroyed even before they reached kindergarten. This is not a demographic dividend, it's a demographic disaster just waiting to explode. And its effects are already being felt in the economy. A system is slowly forming in India that we can call Islandization. There are a few clean and orderly places, surrounded by vast decay. There are gated communities with their own waste management. There are business districts that function. There are special economic zones where services are good. But beyond those walls, everything is slowly falling apart. Public infrastructure breaks down faster than it can be repaired. Services are disrupted. Disease outbreaks become normal. Investors crowd into a few safe zones. Everyone else is left behind. This is not development. This is fragmentation, and it cannot last, because this is the truth about chaos. It spreads. You can't maintain order on a few islands while everything around you is drowning in chaos forever. The time will come when chaos will enter. Workers travel every day from the crowded slums to the clean offices, bringing disease. The flood from the clogged drainage doesn't stop at the subdivision gate. The supply chain passes through the same broken roads that everyone uses. And in the end, even the enclaves will fall. When that happens, the economy won't just slow down, it will start to shrink. We're already seeing the warning signs, frequent disease outbreaks that disrupt operations, infrastructure damage, ports clogged with garbage, airports flooded with sewage. Some foreign companies are pulling out after repeated disruptions. Imagine this happening for decades. Economic growth will stop because we can no longer afford the cost of managing waste. A workforce affected by illness and malnutrition since childhood can no longer keep up with global competition. Capital will move to cleaner countries. The government will have to spend more just to keep basic services running. And nothing will be left for real development. And the population, young, angry, and living in a dirty environment. That's not a recipe for progress. That's a pressure cooker. And this is the most worrying part. When the government can no longer fix basic and obvious things like garbage and sewage, people lose trust in everything. If they can't keep the streets clean, why follow the law? If there's no punishment for littering, why follow traffic rules, tax rules, or building codes? Institutional authority collapses when it fails at its very foundation, and we're seeing this happen right now. People see municipal workers who are supposed to collect garbage, but instead accept bribes to look the other way. They see police officers who don't enforce the law but know how to extort money. They see politicians cutting ribbons at sewage plants that don't even work. Every broken promise, every failed project, every pile of uncollected garbage is proof that the system isn't working. And when people believe the system is broken, they stop participating. They won't pay taxes anymore, thinking it'll just be stolen. They won't complain anymore since nothing gets fixed anyway. They won't vote thinking they're all the same. Blaming becomes the default. Corruption gets even worse because everyone thinks the system is already rotten. Vigilante groups and local mafias step in where the government fails. Communities revert back to tribalism because national identity means nothing if your daily reality is wading through sewage. This is how civilizations fall, not through war, not because of invasion, but through the slow death of civic virtue. And it starts with a simple thing: trash on the street. Because a society that cannot act together to keep its environment clean also cannot act together against greater evils. The problem gets harder and everything else becomes more difficult. There are more people, more trash, but the same broken system. The gap is widening, the islands are shrinking, chaos is spreading, and dreams are slowly dying. It's not because India lacks talent, not because it lacks ambition, not because it lacks resources, but because it hasn't fixed the simplest thing: cleaning up its own backyard. Here's the painful truth. The fall of India will not start in the stock market. It will not start with war, famine, or a natural disaster. It will start in the gutters, in rivers full of sewage, in children whose bodies and minds are damaged before they even turn 5, in a workforce that's too sick to work, in investors taking their money to other countries, and in the slow realization that a country cannot rise. If its foundation is rotting, a superpower doesn't just need economic growth and space programs. It also needs to know how to clean up after itself, and right now, India can't do that yet. The question isn't whether this is embarrassing. The question is it too late? Can a country with 1.47 billion people reverse a decline that's been building for decades? Can it overcome cultural conditioning, caste prejudices, and institutional failure to finally take care of public spaces? Or will we just watch as one of the world's oldest civilizations is suffocated by its own trash? What do you think?